And we are live. Hi, everybody. Welcome to A Branch of Laurels. I'm Ashaxi from Ontier, and my guest tonight is Raven Karaton. And she is from the Summits, the Principality of the Summits in Ontier. And she is one of the first people that introduced me to being able to do a nomadic Scythian persona in the SCA, and has been a long time mentor. And I don't know if I should use the word hero, but you are. So there we go. Sorry if that makes you squirm. So welcome. We usually have people start off with their Sca Origin Stories. How did you find the SCA, and what drew you in?
Right. Well, it all kind of started. I was a freshman in high school, so I was 13 because I skipped a grade, and I saw this poster in the hallway for some kind of medieval tournament thing called Joan of Arc demo at the University of Oregon, and I thought, well, that sounds kind of cool. I mean, I was your typical bookish fantasy loving kid, and I had just read the Mists of Avalon and King Arthur and Robin Hood and all that stuff. So great. Okay. So I went and checked it out, and it was fascinating little tournament. And I didn't really have any idea what it was about. I didn't particularly encounter like a chatelaine or something like that, but I loved it. And my longtime partner in crime, Marion Starveld, on the other hand, had been inducted and like prepped and had garb and everything. So she got into it, and I don't really count that as my first event, just because I was sort of on the outside. And then it took several months, but several other people I had met in high school were also in the SCA, it turned out. And so they finally got me to go to a Midwinter's Feast, which is a nice little feast that Adiantum does. And then I was really hooked, and me and Marion and our friend Shawnage just jumped right into it, and pretty soon met Qara, which became our household, which was, at that point 4 roommates in a house called Fun House, and Qara is sort of a loose translation meaning House of the Otter, which was the symbol. And then my first tournament was Kreggles, the infamous combined crown eggles, which, everybody involved swore that will never happen again, ever. It was a logistical nightmare for the people running it, but I didn't know that. I was just blown away. I mean, I remember my mom picked me up in the car afterwards, and I just nonstop blathered, the whole drive, like half-hour drive home, just this was so amazing. I actually saw Lau at that event, although I didn't connect who she was till later, but the whole thing was just this amazing swirl of images and ideas and possibilities, and it was unforgettable.
So your relationship with Marion predates the SCA?
Just by a little bit, yeah, by a few months.
Did you go to high school together?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. She was like 2 years ahead of me. But,
okay.
Yeah.
And we were talking before we started. My daughter pulled out my husband's yearbook, and your picture is next to his in the yearbook, but you didn't know each other.
Yeah, it's so funny. Not till later. Yeah.
But alphabetically, you're like right there. It's really funny. So when you saw Lau at that event, was she in Eastern garb?
Yeah, she was in like I think more of a man's Mongol outfit, and she had a little Tibetan felt tent, and this doll dressed up as a child. Maybe she was wearing Tibetan clothes, actually. It's a little vague in my mind, but yeah, she had a doll dressed up as a child in the same manner, and I thought that was pretty amazing.
Very cool. And is that what inspired you to get into kind of looking at nomadic stuff?
Not really. I mean, pretty much the only people doing that kind of thing were Lau, Hedviga, and Sunjin that I know of anyway. But I didn't get to know them till later, a little bit later. Basically, I started out in what I call Celtic Norman Wonderland, which is sort of that vague, non-specific early medieval zone that you kind of get plunked into if you just are starting out and borrowing garb and things like that. And then I went through a thankfully brief, like 6-month leather bunny phase. I didn't wear a bikini, but I had the fur and the leather and I thought barbarians were cool. That's cool. Then I learned that nobody ever called themselves a barbarian, and then I started kind of getting the clue about historical research, and actual nomads are interesting. And so I had my Encyclopedia Britannica, and I started looking in that, and ran across Scythians first and thought, well, that sounds pretty interesting. But at the time, the prevailing wisdom archaeologically was that Scythian women were very kind of cloistered, sort of like Muslim women, didn't go out much, didn't ride around, and well, that seemed kind of boring because, oh yeah, the other part of why I picked a nomad persona, this cracks me up now, is I wanted to wear pants. I was a tomboy as a kid. I did not like skirts. I liked to climb trees and, camp and do that kind of stuff. And I wanted pants, dang it. None of these angel wing sleeves and definitely not late period. No corsets, no. So I kept looking, and then it turned out that the Sarmatians were very similar in culture, but, the women were, at least some of the women were active warriors and wore pants and rode horses, and that just sounded way more fun. So also at the time, with there being a lower a period cutoff at the bottom end of, I think it was 650 AD, the Sarmatians could bring me a little closer to that than the Scythians, because the Sarmatians persisted until about the 5th century AD as an independent entity. That was about as far as I could bring it, So I figured that'll work. And the funny thing is, I always had this fear that somebody was going to come up to me and say, you're wrecking my dream with your, what is this off the map early period crap, nobody ever complained about it. So I'm not sure why, but there were Laurels and people back then who get bitchy about that sort of stuff. So I kind of went with that. But then over time, I really found that I kept coming back more and more to particularly the Paziric burials in the Altai, who are sort of, as you know, kind of a subgroup of Scythians with their own really unique vernacular style. And so I just kind of fully embraced being Scythian and not worrying about the time. And then now, recently, that went away. So now it's just a great Bronze Age love fest,
It's kind of astounding. When I started researching this stuff, I had a museum book that was my grandparents, a Metropolitan Museum of Art, I think.
Yep.
From the 70s, right? I had that, and that got me started.
Yep.
And then seeing you and Lau, and then the Ludwiga and Attaius. And then I found Rudenko, and that was the Bible for forever.
Right.
But you couldn't go on the internet and find anything.
No, I think about that a lot. It's so hard to even explain to people that didn't experience it, how hard it was to find stuff. And for me, the watershed was when I went to college in '92. I started ransacking the university library for the first time, getting out of just first the high school library, which I ransacked, and then the public library, which I ransacked, and and then this, and small school. So I really literally read every single book they had that even tangentially related to the subject. And that was when I really started taking a systematic approach and keeping a bibliography and photocopying every damn thing, because of course, you couldn't just save photos from the web, and really trying to develop I had this whole list of topics that I would look through every index of every book, and just really took it that way. But at the time, really, I was really pulling from a lot of different areas, because again, there just wasn't that much information, and so I drew in a lot of information about other cultures. I read a lot of ethnographic stuff about peoples in Kazakhstan in the historical period and areas like that. And, which of course isn't period, but it, I think for Lifeways, it really gives you a huge feel for it because people are still facing the same geographic challenges, the same lifestyle in any century. And so it just helps you understand how a culture might engage with their landscape and adapt in that way. So I was kind of thinking, I kind of created my own idiom in a way. It wasn't an exact replica of an exact thing. I mean, in later period, sometimes I envy and sometimes I don't, but you can take the rainbow portrait of Elizabeth I and you can build an exact replica in every detail, and it's much harder to do that with the early period stuff, especially if you don't speak academic Russian, or have a chance to go to St. Petersburg, which I still haven't. But it's getting easier because more and more is being published, but it's still, there's always going to be some interpretation. And then of course, the other big thing is having a culture with no written language, so that you're never going to know how they thought for sure. We just have to infer it from the material culture, the things that other cultures said, and then those sort of squishier influences of the ethnography and so forth.
And like you said before, looking at all the cultures around them and how they've developed today.
Yeah.
I've kind of done the same, and you kind of have to look at the aesthetic of the culture and kind of run with it instead of do exact replications of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm never going to make a full leather outfit, and so much of that stuff is leather on leather, and that's not my bag.
Yeah, so I hate sewing leather. It's just, I'm in awe of Ludwika when she does that.
Right?
It's just like, oh, I can't do it. My hands just hurt thinking about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there are objects that I would like to replicate as much as I can. But, I struggled to learn Russian in college. I did 2 years in high school because my high school actually had Russian, and 3 years in college. And I still never felt like I could just read an article, because archaeological language can be difficult even when you're a native speaker. There's a lot of terminology that isn't even in your dictionary. And so, I could do captions, I could do book titles, and kind of get a gist of something, but it drives me nuts. And now I don't even have, that much of a grasp, except I can at least sound things out. But until the day that they translate Polesmak's books, it's hard to get past a certain point.
So I don't know if you've discovered this or not, but you can get on Google Translate on your phone if you have a fancy smartphone.
Yeah.
And you can highlight a caption on a picture and it'll translate it for you.
So it must be getting better. Yeah, I haven't tried that recently because it used to be so notorious, but
I've been slowly going through the Polosmak book. And
wow.
For people that, sorry, that shoulder doesn't work anymore and I can't reach anymore. For people that don't know what we're talking about,
right?
We're talking about this. And it has things like dye plants. And
yeah, it's something that was finally written with textiles in mind, whereas most archaeology is so focused on metal and wood artifacts because that's mostly what you find. So yeah, it's really a breakthrough kind of work.
Super exciting book.
Yeah.
And it's in Russian and
yeah, and it will probably never be popular enough to be professionally translated. So
right. So anyway, sorry, we went down on that.
Yeah, rabbit hole.
So let's circle back. You went to your first tournament.
Yeah.
And you were hooked.
Yep.
But your mom is taking you to events and dropping you off and picking you up.
Just that first one. After that, I was going with the household members, including Ambrose, and camping with them. And me and Marion and Shawnage became wards of the household, just kind of to reflect our younger more junior status, although the household is very non-hierarchical in general, but
Right.
it was more that we were dependents, you know, and so we were given extra help and so forth. And so, yeah, we drove all over the place. We went to Canada, and my mom had some difficulties with that kind of thing at first, of just like trusting that these people were okay and everything. But pretty soon it, clearly was okay, and I was having a great time. So,
And
yeah.
this is before minor waivers became
Oh, no, there were minor waivers.
Were there?
But it was before some of the crackdowns about guardians on site, and yeah, it was easier at that point for sure. Yeah, oh yeah, there were minor waivers. I remember when I was able to throw away my master copy of the minor waiver file. It was a rite of passage. Yeah.
So you're traveling all over the kingdom, and when did you decide that you wanted to pursue the arts path and sort of think about apprenticing to somebody?
Well, it wasn't really a decision per se, because I'd always been an artist as a kid. For as long as I could hold a pencil, I painted and drawn and stuff like that. What was more of a late bloomer thing relatively for me was textiles. I had zero interest in sewing or any of that when I joined the SCA, but pretty soon I could see that if I wanted these cool things, I was going to have to learn. And so, yeah, gradually I got the string addiction and, picked up all things string, from weaving to spinning to felting, dyeing, and a little bit of spraying and braiding and this and that, but let's see. How did I, yeah, so it wasn't like I had to choose an arts path. That was just a given to me. And the apprentice thing was, I like to think of it as an arranged marriage because Lau and I did not know each other in any personal way. I mean, Ambrose had been doing things like introducing me to her and kind of like, look, and I was totally shy, and she's a very private person also. And so I think it was pretty much various household members plus Hildegard probably on Lau's side. I can't help but wonder if Lau is watching this. She might have her own version, but anyway, yeah, of course. So they kind of herded us together in the end. It's just like, you really need to do this, and it was incredibly inspiring and incredibly intimidating. And because she was I'm not even sure hero is the right word. It was more like a deity, as you can imagine. And so that was, what year was that? That was like like 2.5 years after I joined the SCA too. So I was pretty new to it all. And because we lived far apart geographically, we didn't kind of get to do the just hang out. And so except in events. And so it was kind of less about specific skills that I learned, and much more about focus and direction, because, I wanted to do all the things. And it really helped to have, I remember this point at which you said you have to pick five projects, and I'm just like, no, how about five textile and 5 in this area? No, 5. So that was, she could help keep me on the path, the track to finish things and not just get completely scattered.
One of her superpowers is organizing and getting things in a progression that makes sense,
clarifying.
Yeah,
kind of boiling it down to the essence. And so then, and she asked me to write what I ended up calling the Scythian Cliff Notes, which was a sort of a research paper, although I didn't do citations. I had a bibliography, but I didn't cite everything, which would have been nice. But it was just like a summary of everything I had learned about Scythians and Sarmatians, with the idea that it could be shared with other people. So I did. That was a project that she specifically had me do, and that was a great way to kind of cohere what I'd been collecting all over. And then when I was 20 and still in college, and I was studying art history and classics mainly in Russian language, I came up, I was very philosophical, and I came up with this definition of a laurel. But since I wasn't a laurel, I thought this is maybe a little cheeky, so I should run it by my master to see how she feels about it. So I sent it, and I didn't get a response, except about 2 or 3 months later, I got offered the laurel, so I sort of figured, okay, that was probably a sign that I was maybe on, that was probably a workable definition.
And I have that.
Yeah.
Do you want me to pull it up now?
Yeah, sure, why not?
So we are sharing through Google. Oh, that is not what I wanted to pull up. Sorry. Let's see. So bear with me while I figure this out. Open, please. There we go. So you were 20 years old when you wrote this, and not yet a laurel,
right?
Which is kind of amazing. So do you want me to read it?
Sure.
So it says the Raven's fourfold path definition of a laurel. The laurel is a path, not a place. On the way to it and after, always one must do for the sake of doing, not for the accolade. For the sake of being on the path, because it is what you love. The creative unfolding, the dedicated pursuit of what matters to you, what fascinates you, what challenges and perplexes you. The fourfold definition of a laurel. The element of art, creativity, design, synthesis, impact, aesthetic, instinct, intention, concept. The true art of it lifts work above simple imitation or bare function. The element of craftsmanship. Technique, skills, execution, knowledge, true mastery of a craft. The structure that successfully defines, contains, and expresses artistic intent, certain measurable, if flexible standards set in the artist's own mind, if nowhere else. Either of these elements alone is insufficient. Art without structure or purpose, technique without spirit or meaning. Their successful combination produces, number 3, a body of work. The elements of art and craftsmanship may manifest ideas, intentions expressed in physical form, not necessarily quantity, but demonstration, expression, result. The body of work must not be made for or used by yourself alone, but must function in and for the society, resulting in, number 4, the element of contribution, teaching, influence, effect, conveying skills, information, and ideas, whether through direct teaching, through the sheer example and inspiration that one's work provides to others, through coordination of projects, articles, offices. There are as many ways to contribute as there are people, and as many levels. Contribution might be wide-reaching and general, local and in-depth, or both, having an effect. Solving a problem, bridging a gap, creating or filling a niche, providing opportunities, connecting people and resources, doing something real, pushing the envelope, adding to or challenging the body of knowledge, expanding what is possible, what is done, and what is thought of, changing how people see some portion of the world or themselves. What? It's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah.
And people are asking for a copy. Would it be all right with you if I put it up on the sisters interview page?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, or I could also do it as like a text block rather than an image, but I don't know what's easier for people. Yeah.
Okay.
Probably the image might be good.
Okay.
Yep.
So I think that's pretty cool. Do you want to talk about it?
I think it pretty much says, what I have to say about it. I think that people can get stuck at any of the first 3 levels. And it is possible that it could be helpful to somebody if they're going, wow, it's really gorgeous art and everybody loves it, but I'm, not getting anywhere, or my craftsmanship is meticulous and perfect and my techniques are great, but something's missing, so I think if that could be one way to use it. But yeah, that's pretty much sums up how I saw it at the time, and it still works for me now. So
Is there anything that you would add after we were talking earlier and you were Laurel 28 years ago?
yeah, I think that's what we figured out. It's really appalling to me, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Nothing coming to mind, sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's fine. Do you want me to stop sharing or do you want to move into pictures?
Yeah, we can look at pictures.
Okay. And again, I apologize for my, okay, your textile scribble designs, cooking, or pictures?
How about textiles?
Okay, let's go to textiles first.
This is one of those things I can't really, like if I were entering it, I would not enter it in a contest and say I can document, this specifically. It was a more of one of those gestalt things of using the kind of cloud collar motif that you see in Chinese art and other that shows up in nomadic stuff as well. So just a really this great heavyweight twill that you used to be able to get. And the seams are bound with the first piece of backstrap weaving I ever did, which was made with some hand spun yarn that Master William Bjornson made.
Oh, cool. Okay, I'm not sure. Oh, yeah, it worked. Okay.
This is just a whole bunch of us spinning at one Eggles. I love drop spindle because it's so timely. Well, it's been around for such a long time, and it's very primal. That's the word. It just makes me feel connected to so many, particularly women in the past. And spinning was something I really didn't want to learn. I thought I wasn't going to like it, and then I ended up having to for this series of workshops I was asked to teach, and then I ended up getting hooked on it. So
it's very meditative.
Yeah.
And I love what you said about it. It kind of makes you feel doing crafts. I say crafts, but whatever.
Right.
Like that really does make you feel connected to the past. It's really cool. Marion's asking me if I can do the pictures full screen, and this is as well.
There's what about the plus thing down there? Does that?
Yeah, I'm checking.
There. Kind of works. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess that's the disadvantage of the format, but yeah, this shows part of the red and black coat that I made with there's a deer antler motif from the Pazyryk burials, which I think the way I placed it is not, I think, how it is actually placed with it going over the shoulder, but it was what I what I knew at the time. And it's got silver silver ingot put through a rolling mill till it was thin enough to sew down, but they've wrinkled a little over the years.
It's really cool. Yeah.
This is me in high school and Marion on the left there, and but this is so the hood was emulating a man's hood actually from Pazyryk. Just that one had kind of a crown-like object on top, so I didn't do that.
Yeah, I've always wanted to have either a Tyus or Optimus Sades wing crown so that we could make that hat and have it be their county.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
That would be so cool.
Totally, yeah. This is some natural dyeing, just an afternoon worth of, I wish I could remember everything there. Madder. I think we used some Concord grape skins for the purple, and then various plants that make green. There's kind of a million of those. I love dyeing, natural dyeing, and just finding something and boiling it and seeing what happens. I'm not one of those really systematic chemical dyers, so.
Yeah, I'm not either. It's why I've kind of shied away from it. But you guys do this type of thing at events, right?
Oh yeah, it's very doable. I mean, I don't do anything toxic, or that kind of stuff because of groundwater disposal and that sort of consideration, but yeah, very easy. This is kind of outside of my usual idiom, but it was really a fun exploration of probably the most complex embroidery project I've done. And so this was a bag I made for Marion, and at one 12th night, her and Ambrose got talked into doing late period outfits, which is not their usual thing. And so I actually did my only Renaissance outfit, which kind of bent a lot of brains. It was hilarious. But so to go with her outfit, I made this bag based on Elizabethan stump work techniques and incorporating her various symbolisms. So this is couching over, the mountain is couching over a felt padded shape to create the summit's grail. And the tulip is a Dutch emblem representing her Dutch persona and heritage. And you can't really tell, but the leaves and the front of the tulip are freestanding on wire.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I was working for an embroidery shop at the time and reading a lot of books, so that gave me the inspiration for this. And some of those stitches, I have no idea what stitch they are anymore. But so this is also padded, and then the coronet is wire with, or that was actually representing the baronial coronet with pearls, because she and Ambrose were Baron and Baroness of Adiantum for a long, long time.
And laurel leaves. Are those laurel leaves?
Yeah, on the next next slides. Yeah, right. Okay, this was the comet that was the symbol of their first reign, because I think it was the Hale-Bopp comet was in the sky at the time. And this is Ornuet couching, which I think is fascinating, where you use the direction and density and color of the couching stitches to convey the form. So by putting the stitches closer together or farther apart, you change the color effect.
Oh, wow. Okay. It's beautiful.
And then I think the last one is so this is the Barony of Adiantum arms with the bicranial bear in padded felt with stitching. And then the leaves are wire wrapped, which I wrapped with thread and then did an open mesh net stitch to fill those in.
Very cool.
And this is that. So this is them, the outfit. You can just barely see her holding the bag, and then I'm standing in the back with my Italian wren outfit.
Here's you.
And there's Vesta.
Vesta.
Yeah, various folks.
Very cool. Oh, were there more in that row of pictures? There were. Let's go back to
mittens. Something that I enjoy making, which has, no particular basis in period, but it's just, I do it for my own enjoyment and other people's enjoyment. I call them knittens. Lovely. This is what got me interested in knitting, which was another thing I had no interest in previously, because I'd never seen anything I wanted to make. And then suddenly I saw these and I went, I have to make these. There needs to be more of them. And so one day I convinced me close to stage this little scene of horrifying scene of brutality. And mittens attack.
This little knitting down here, we have it is a treasure in our house, or one made out of the same yarn as. We love that.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I don't always know where they end up, because sometimes I just walk through parties at 12th night or something, throwing them at people. And then I made one really giant one just to see if I could do it, or just to do it, and it turned out to be really boring. So I didn't do it again. But
I think you gave it to my son Sam, our son Sam, who's
the big one went to Alice.
The knitting that
the little one, yeah.
When he was little, and he's 5 now. He's a man.
Yeah.
Which is weird. But he still has his knitting. He still loves knitting. So
that's sweet.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, that's the thing. All ages like them, So yeah, then I started doing a little bit of knitting. This is based on, I think, the Scion pouch and a few other. It's not, knitting is not something I've done a huge amount of research on. I just kind of borrowed what people had done, but love this cat pattern, so I had to do some of that. and the Laurel Wreath. And this is, oh yeah, not quite finished blocked, but I think this was based on a charted embroidery pattern from Italy or thereabouts.
Knitting is like witchcraft.
It's a pretty weird concept to take two sticks and pull a loop through another loop. I don't know who thought that up because it's kind of dumb,
Yeah.
but it does kind of work. This was just something I made for a prize for a baronial contest, and the bramble or the blackberry represents all the clearing that baronial members have done on the Links Hollow site where we now hold Eagles. And then the other side of it has the cranial bear again, which is tough to realize in a chart, but it works.
But you did it. It's amazing. Okay, let's see. Oh, there we go.
Oh yeah, there's my very first three-dimensional felt hat, which I could wear.
Cool.
So I when I was in high school, I took a workshop at this local place on campus called the Craft Center, which is awesome because you can learn just about anything. And took a workshop in felting, and day one we made a flat thing, and then day two we made a seamless, where all the seams are felted instead of sewn in any way. And that hat has sort of me in good stead ever since. And this is a really typical type of Scythian hat that you see very often represented in, particularly in depictions by other cultures like the Greeks. You can tell that this is a Scythian on Greek, black figure pottery, because they'll have some type of pointy hood like this, and usually skin tight clothing. That's a felt rug I was working on, where the design is felted directly on. It's not like a stitch in any way. And that was the sort of bamboo mat up in the corner there. A few years into my felting experience, I learned about the bamboo matchstick blind technique, and that revolutionized felting for me, because you roll, after you've got it just barely felted, you roll it up in the mat and rock it back and forth, and it just takes like 6 hours off the process, as opposed to just rubbing it in circles with your hands.
Saves so much time.
Yeah, it was amazing.
And Becca asks, was the hat edged in silk?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And I love doing this kind of little rug project with people as a demo or a workshop, because everybody can get involved in it. It's not so fiddly, that you have to control people touching it, and everybody's just kind of amazed that you can make a whole textile in a couple hours. So I've done that a lot for schools too, or I like to have kids do felt balls, because then they can throw them at each other and they have a great time, but you don't break anything. So
it's very satisfying.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
And these are some boots that I did, felted out of Angora wools, Angora goat. So it doesn't have the same amount of crimp as wool fleece, and it never hardened up or tightened up quite as much as I wanted. So it's very thick, and it's still kind of fuzzy, but so I only wear them inside, also because, white felt in Oregon outdoors just isn't great.
Not very good.
I did put leather soles on them, but I pretty much wear them inside, so I don't trash them. And the applique is a bird, and then one of these stylized fish that you see a lot in the Altaic motifs.
I'm addicted to those fish right now.
I love those fish. Yeah, I think they're great. That's just another angle of that.
That's like one of the thumb tattoos, the bird, right?
Kind of, yeah. It was before that came out, so it was kind of a riff on the style, but that I just sort of designed. And oh yeah, and the applique felt was felt I made also.
Very cool.
And here's a little bit of weaving. I haven't really done a ton of weaving, but this is probably the best thing I did, which was it's a diamond twill. It's actually based on a Celtic Bronze Age find, and I changed the colors, but yeah, so I took a weaving class at the U of O just as an audit, and that was my final project.
Beautiful. And did you make a garment out of that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm actually wearing it in one of the photos where Mark and I or sorry, Octomasades and I are standing behind Ambrose and Marion in court. I didn't want to cut it, and so I sewed edge to edge and made that seam the front and back center so that the sides didn't have a seam.
Mm-hmm.
And then all I had to do was cut out the neckline, which is another one of those things where I can't really document it, but it looked good. And
yeah.
It could have happened because it's rectangular construction. I just didn't want to cut the piece at the sides, so I sewed selvage to selvage.
Hand weaving is so much work. It's really hard to bring yourself to cut into it.
Well, it really makes you understand why rectangular construction is the way it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Garan has been talking about these boots and the red that are in the boots. And she wants to know, did you dye the red? And if you did, what did you use to get that color?
I think I did, and it would have been cochineal. I can't remember 100% if I used cochineal or if I used a modern dye but it would have been a lac Kermes dye in period. Yeah. And I have dyed stuff with cochineal to prove that to myself. And this is another one of those kind of SCA objects that works, isn't strictly documentable, but it's because it's not a bag for collecting trash. It was the prize for trash collecting at Eggles. One of the things Marion and I did a few years back was we kind of revamped what had been a strictly Norse series of arts and sciences competitions and also martial art at Eggles for many years. So to shift, people felt that the Norse focus was excluding some people, and so we wanted to make it a little more accessible. So we redeveloped it as the 3 pillars of the SCA, which are, of course, the arts, the martial, and service. And so we did prizes for each of them, and one of the service contests was to see how many bags of trash you could collect on site, which some people got really into it. It was great, they were filling up their bags. And so this was one of those sort of Norse style shoulder bags with an felled applique in a Book of Kells motif. So, kind of a mishmash, but I like the overall effect of it.
It's SCA cool.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's an SCA object with some period inspiration. Okay, this is not the right order, but
sorry.
No, it's not you. It's the weird folder that did stuff with it. Anyway, so this is a part of a dress that is the embroidery is based on the very famous man's tattoos from the Paziric burials, which, if you look at any history of tattoo website, they'll know about this, even though they know nothing else about Scythians, because they are so incredible and survived, like other perishable things, survived in those burials uniquely because of the permafrost. So I'm adapting something that was all over his upper body, and this was on the leg, and adapting that to a garment. And so if you want to go on, there's probably better shots of it. Yeah, that's the other leg, or gusset in this case, on the lower part, and there's that fish again. And one of those creatures that you really go, wow, those were some zesty drugs. Because for those who don't know, the Scythians did use hemp, both recreationally and probably and ceremonially, and you can really tell sometimes. Possibly also opium and ephedra and all kinds of good stuff. My theory about that is winter is long. Winter is long, you get bored, you do drugs, and then you decorate everything. Like, okay, we've decorated the clothes, we decorated the arrow shafts, you know, because they would paint the arrow shafts. Let's decorate this guy. He's holding still. So this is some of it. So this is all directly from the tattoos. The only thing I did was to make some of it a little more symmetrical on the chest, just by replicating one, you know, like one animal so that it wasn't so asymmetrical. But other than that, this is all directly from those designs. And yeah, sometimes you have sheep which are recognizable. What's that thing down at the bottom end? With the sort of hump wing? I don't know. The horse-like creature with the beak and the antlers is obviously from finds something that had huge significance to the Scythians. That one crops up over and over.
Yeah.
You know, we don't know exactly what it meant to them, but it was something transformative and, you know, powerful.
They even dress their horses up as it.
Yeah, exactly. Dressing their horses up as other animals with antlers and so forth. And there's a variation on that. And I always loved how the antlers sprout little birds. That's another thing that points to psychedelic drugs for me. Yeah. The antlers are sprouting and they're singing to me. You know? So here's where I replicated the animal on the chest just because it looked weird to me to have it asymmetrical, which is a modern, you know, modern judgment, but there you go.
These are choices we make.
Yeah, that's on the back. And some more of that. More creatures.
And this is all couched metal threads.
Oh, right. So yeah. So this is Japan silver, which nowadays is made from mylar over I don't know, silk or nylon core. My rationale for this is there are some boots in Pizarric that have sinew thread that's wrapped with foil. It's a great deal chunkier than this. You know, the foil is not mylar thin, but so that was my rationale. And this is, you know, there was no way to get real metal thread at that time in my universe anyway, you know, again, pre-internet ordering. And so that's where I went with that. And oh yeah, the other funny thing about this garment is, so I was in college at Reed and I was studying art history, and somehow I managed to perfect the art of sitting in art history slide lectures. There's another thing that dates me, you know, slides where the room is dark. I was able to take notes, pay attention, and stitch on this at the same time. I'm not quite sure how. I still did great in all my classes, so they learned to put up with it, you know, but I didn't get nearly as much embroidery after I left college.
It helps focus a busy mind, keeping your hands busy.
Yeah. Then you had what I swear are like T-Rexes or something, the lower part. All right, there's the whole, yeah, I'm sorry, I have a billion pictures of this, but.
It's a spectacular garment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of my faves.
Okay.
Okay.
So now we need to, let's look at, your yurt.
Yeah. Right.
So I had a moment at an early Eagles that I went to where, and I don't know if I had already built my yurt or not, probably not. And your door frame with the tigers on it.
Oh yeah.
I was just like, oh.
I love those motifs so much. Yeah.
So cool.
They're from a carved wooden coffin.
Mm-hmm.
So I just did them in paint, but yeah, so yurt, you know, this is another great example of how much harder life was before the internet, this kind of thing. I had no information. I had one book, which is Tents, the Architecture of the Nomads, which had some line drawings in it and like maybe a 2-page description of how yurts work. And I had a couple of National Geographic articles that showed, you know, again, 4 or 5 pictures of, particularly one where they're assembling step by step, which was really helpful, but that's it. You know, there was no, I mean, the other day I found a video of people on YouTube making a whole Kazakh yurt from scratch. And I was just going, God, what I would have given for that at the time. It was just blew my mind, you know. So the beauty, so I made this when I was, or with help, when I was around 16 or 17, yeah, 17, 18. And my dad, bless his heart, this a great thing about him was that he never, if I was into something, he was into it, and he never balked and went, why do you want to do that? So when his 17-year-old daughter says, I want to make a yurt, he's like, okay, I guess we'll figure out how to make a yurt. So the pictures with the red background are the, yeah, so this is the second version. And as you can see, the roof pitch varies a bit. Okay, so here's the first version that I made. I purchased the wall slats pre-made from a company called Pacific Yurts. They made mostly perma yurts, but they would, at that point, they were willing to sell me just the walls because their upper structure was very modern and I didn't want to use that. So I got that, riveted it together. And this was also with help from Ambrose and Master William as well. And that, yeah, William helped me. The poles were willow suckers that we cut in Southern Oregon and cured and tried to steam bend, but didn't work great. And then my dad made the ring out of laminated plywood, you know, and
Wow.
And so I got the proportions a little off. I mean, for the beginning, I was aiming for a Western steps yurt, like a Kazakh style one, rather than a Mongolian one with the much heavier roof ring and poles. If you go to, I think, the next picture, you can kind of see the, right. So the proportions are kind of off on this, as once I got more images, I realized the walls are high and the roof is too steep. So it kind of looks like an ice cream sundae is how I think of it. So after a bit, I realized I could take the same walls, expand them more, bring the wall height down to 5 feet instead of 6 feet. And then I did have to get new poles, but so then the pitch of the roof came down. And so that's the other pictures show that version. And because I used the willow poles, it was still always variable going up. Each pole kind of had its own personality, and I knew which ones were kind of the evil poles and which ones were the better poles. I discovered it was really problematic putting it up on any kind of tilted ground, really bad, not good. So, you know, in some ways it would have been more convenient to use just like a conventional piece of lumber, but I love the fact that they are just natural wood, you know. And I kind of speak of it in the past tense because I haven't set it up in quite a while. Ever since I started having back problems, it just isn't that feasible and doesn't really make sense for just one person, you know, to have this gigantic tent. Right. So I haven't been camping in it, but I still adore it because it's just so atmospheric when you get a whole bunch of people in there and light the fire and it's cold outside and you're warm in there and the light is glowing, and I just adore it. Yeah.
It's one of the things I miss most about the SCA is your, which is weird, but there it is.
I actually thought about just setting it up in my backyard this summer. I didn't get around to it, but I thought that it would be fun to just hang out in there. And
Same.
I have a big enough yard, so why not?
Okay.
And yeah, a lot of people think Sungen originated Ontarian yurts, but I was first. I always take pride in that. And I remember I was at the event when she set her first one up, you know, and I remember she had a lot of trouble with it too. So, you know, everybody has to start somewhere.
And if you had had the internet, the two of you could have collaborated, but you didn't.
Well, she was doing she was doing the Mongol style with a kind of different roof structure, but
right.
Yeah, let's look at Scribble for something different. Okay. Let's see. Oh yeah, that's a little teaching tool I did to show people how to do medieval, or, you know, kind of middle period shading for illumination, which is really wonderfully simple. It's so much simpler than the way that modern painters use color, or that 18th, 19th century painters did. So I kind of did this to demystify it for people, like just make light, medium, and dark, and then white highlights, and that's all you need. And the white highlights are the magic. So I'll just mention, you know, obviously my scribal interest had nothing to do with my nomad persona, and that's something I see as kind of an outgrowth of the SCA person. You know, we start out as, in my view, we start out as whatever our origin story is, but then somehow we all ended up in Ontier, or whatever, wherever we are in the SCA, and this is a different place. And so my theory is I came here and they taught me how to read and write, which as a Scythian I wouldn't know, and then I learned how to do this kind of stuff. And this, you know, this kind of art came much more easily to me, or was much more familiar to me than the textile stuff initially, because I had always been drawing and painting. The calligraphy was a little tougher. That I learned in the SCA for sure. Mostly by, I really didn't have, again, anybody around to show me this particularly. I mean, a few people did a little calligraphy, but mostly I figured out black letter from my AA promissory and just looking at it, and just by trial and error, you know, getting it better. You know, now you have these wonderful books like Medieval Calligraphy by Mark Drogan, which are so helpful. This is what I did for Lau's, one of Lau's projects, and it's the only scroll I've done that's in Middle English. So that was fun. The Gothic ivy stuff is my very favoriteest style. This is making paper at, and this and several other pictures are from the Festival of St. Hildegard, which was a great event that used to happen in Washington on the Klickitat River. And they were 10-day events, which,
wow,
if you've ever been to one, is something like that. It's so immersive. You just feel like you're living it. And it was a very rough, rustic site. It was mostly kind of open woodland like this, very dry. And the people who owned it had goats and sheep just wandering through. So you know, it's the most nomadic, real experience I've ever had. And, you know, and cooking all over a fire and everything. So we could do a lot of kind of messier projects like felting, and this was paper making that are tough to do indoors. I haven't done a whole lot of paper making, but it's nice to at least know enough about it to understand how it works. Wow. This is one of my favorite. I haven't actually done very many charter designs, but this is a favorite one of mine for an Audiantum Award, Service Award. And there's a lot of these types of borders in period with the architectural situation, but I wanted to show people constructing it as an act of service. So that's my own variation on it. And I also made a point of including people of different social classes and both men and women. So you have kind of more refined people, and then you have more laborer type people.
Laborer,
mm-hmm.
More refined. Really cool.
It's a fun one to paint too. So this is a detail of Ambros's Knighting Scroll, which I had to be different. You know, I thought it's a knight scroll. I wanted something more than just a piece of paper, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but just something different. And his persona is Byzantine. So I decided to do a wooden panel in the shape of an oval shield. And this is, so the center is basically the shield boss, which was wood. And then this whole thing is covered with traditional gesso, which is different from, modern gesso, which I mixed with hide glue. And there's 7 layers of gesso on the panel. And then I used another 8 layers in the selected areas to build up the chain. So the chain is a bas-relief, essentially. It's dimensional. And then I gilded the chain. And then I painted it with egg tempera, which is such a weird medium. It's so weird. I had 0 experience with it, and there are a lot of places I can look at it and go, yeah, I can tell. But but man, it is weird stuff. I should use it more than I have, but I'm just so much more comfortable with water-based, watercolor or gouache, that I haven't done too much with this. But this is one of those prove you can do it prove to yourself that you can do something kind of projects. And then after I made it, within a few months, this crack developed. And I was, because I didn't, a lot of things I didn't know. And one of them was that you shouldn't choose a piece of wood which has a knot hole or knot in it. And so that flaw in the wood created this crack that slowly migrated across most of the piece. And I was terrified the whole thing was just going to flake off. But it's been that way for 25 years now. And so it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. So now it just kind of, to me, adds to the, effect of a fresco or something. And I just used a ton of his personal symbolism and, like the black line for the kingdom and the griffin for summits. And there's more of this. There's the whole thing.
Somebody wants to know, how many hours did it take to complete this?
It took a month. I didn't track the hours beyond that, but it took a month. And at that time, I don't think I was working. So it was pretty much my job for a month. And most of that was spent on the prepping the panel and doing the chain. That was, and so after raising the chain with the gesso, I carved it to give it more, definition and create the illusion of the links overlapping. And the painting part was honestly kind of rushed because that part took so much time. But there it is.
Amazing.
And yeah, yeah, these are fun. These are this is for a card deck that some folks were going to make. We were going to make period playing cards. And so I did my suit. And nobody else did theirs. So one of these days I need to go back and make 3 more suits. So this was the suit of griffins. And it was a lot of fun. And it's just ink on paper.
Very cool. Wow.
I had to start getting creative about ways to it's hard to get 9 griffins into or 10 griffins into one scene. So to come up with different ways of doing that.
Wow.
I love drawing griffins.
So cool.
Yeah. This is painting on a pavilion that was another Eggles contest prize. I think this was for the tournament. And so there's, I forget what church it's from, but there's a medieval green man that looks like this. And then I did it in different seasons. So this is winter. And that's spring, I think, or summer, I forget.
I love the bees.
Yeah, okay, this is spring.
Okay.
And that's closer to what the original looked like. And this is fall.
Very cool.
And that was oil-based paint on the canvas. Okay, this is a detail, but we kind of need the whole thing for it to make sense.
Oh, okay.
Let's see that one. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So here's something wildly inappropriate that I didn't do for SCA purposes, but it, I just had to include it. I did this after about the first month or 2 of the pandemic to express my feelings about the pandemic. And I just had fun with it, including the barfing snail is probably my favorite part.
Aww.
And I painted the barf with this beautiful glittery silver paint, so it's really nice barf. So yeah, that's sometimes I just have to do things with that style that aren't necessarily SCA appropriate.
And then there's a little slug down
There's a slug, yeah, which is an emblem of Adiantum, which is another story, but
I love that.
Yeah. So because I can draw, I often get tapped to do drawings for other projects. And so the big dais cloth, the black header is stuff that I did all the drawing for, and then various people in the barony painted it. So again, using lots of griffin and lion symbolism and lots of acanthus. And oh yeah, I forgot, when I did this, a lot of this, I had a light fever. And so it kind of shows in some of the curly curliness and profusion of the acanthus leaves. It was actually kind of helpful because I think, you get a little less inhibited and you just really go for it.
Awesome. Wow. That's cool.
So we pull this out when Adiantum does 12th nights usually. I think we might have loaned it once or twice too.
And these banners down here, banners I made.
But yeah. Oh, did you? That's awesome. Yeah. There you go. So,
I didn't put any defining marks in the bodies of lions, and I still regret that. And they've been in use for like 20 years now. Every time I see them, I'm like, oh, I should have done that.
Oh, yeah, there are some hangings like that I'm just like, oh God. Yeah, and this is the double-headed bear again.
So cool.
And this is a metallic paint that's really hard to get now. It's so pretty.
It really is. So is that part of the 12th night decorations?
Yeah.
Okay, and we'll get more into that. We'll get more into that.
Oh yeah. This one I don't include for technique because it was a pretty early piece, but for historical value, this is the petition for summits to become a crown principality, which I don't know if that's still the case, but it was at anyway the intermediary step that the kingdom was requiring before we could. It was sort of like the training wheels version before we became a full principality. I was pretty involved in that whole project of taking summits towards a principality, and this was I did this one for the crown principality. I also did one for the principality status, which unfortunately has been lost, and I don't have any good photos of it. But anyway, so this had all the branch names and so forth. Yeah, that's okay. Sorry. Yeah. So this had all the branches on the right, and then around the border it had the people who had been defenders and ladies of the summits, which was our sort of placeholder for who was going to become prince and princess. It was a way of investing that kind of ceremony into summits without crossing the line into actual royalty.
Right.
It's hard for people to understand how controversial that was at the time. To want to be a principality was considered to be this horrible, disloyal thing, and we fought against that for so many years.
People get really passionate about it. We talked about for a little while in the Three Mountains area going, trying to form a principality, and there were a couple of people that were involved in the summits going principality, and I was super excited about it until one of these people who is a longtime player said, I was there for the summits, and if you guys do this, I'm going to quit the SCA. And I was like, really? It's that important to you? Jeez. And they were like, yeah, and it was an awful process. And I'm like, okay, well, I back off. I will not push for this anymore. Because you don't want to break somebody's game over something, that just would be kind of a lark. But
yeah,
that is not to say that you guys did the wrong thing, because I think you did the right thing.
Yeah, it was hard to understand where the animosity was coming from, but that's a whole nother ball of wax.
All right.
This is a little one that was presentation for Adiantum was giving gifts to their majesties, so it was a little listing of what we were presenting. And my favorite thing is always doing those little marginalia. This was a huge and wonderful Adiantum production that pretty much just about the whole barony worked on. And it was a gift to the Kingdom of the West at 30th year celebration. So as our founding kingdom, to thank them for starting this whole thing. And so this was, the reason I have it here is because I did a lot of the drawing. So this was another one of, hey, you can draw, do this. So I did a lot of, the tree branches, and Master Lonergan also worked on that too. But, and then it was embroidered lovingly by not just ladies, but a bunch, in particular, some very determined ladies in the barony, and with all hand spun, hand period dyed thread, and a woven bands that at the top said something about, given to the Kingdom of the West for the barony of Adiantum, and at the bottom say Lave Secum Solum, which was our translation of dry clean only. And it has
awesome.
all the kingdoms and their principalities on that. I think it's just kingdoms, but and lots of critters and birds and flowers. And so this actual photo is where we were presenting it at 3YC, or we paraded it through the camp with someone heralding, make way for the history of the known world. And then we presented it to the Crown of the West, where they were having some kind of important dinner. And the King of the West cried. And I'll,
Aw.
you know, because he was so moved, and I'll never forget that. It was one of those, wow.
And that was, I think that was Alden at 30th year.
Huh?
I think Alden was King of the West at 30th year.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah. So,
Mark, my husband Octavasades talks about this. He,
uh-huh.
I don't know what work he did on it, but he says he did some work on it.
Yeah, like I said, it wasn't just women. Yeah, just about anybody who could hold a needle got pressed into it. So.
Such a beautiful piece.
So this is my first actual scroll. So I like to throw that in there just to show that, you know, you've got to start somewhere. The calligraphy is pretty ghastly, but this was based on the Gaston Phoebus Book of Hunting, which was kind of the first replica book I got of a manuscript, and really kicked off my love of Gothic. And this was an invitation to the Crown to come to Midwinters, which is something that Adiatum at least used to do, and I think other branches too. I don't know if people still do that, but
I don't know either.
Yeah, it was fun to send them something spiffy, and so that you know, it was kind of the first time I think that I got the opportunity to do something that would be presented, you know, like to a crown in that way. So that was
pretty special.
Scary.
Yeah. I think this may be one of the little traditions that the internet ruined.
Yeah, probably so.
Okay, so I think we're done.
Then there's the Doomsday Book.
Okay, we'll go to that.
So this was for 40th year, right? Yeah. Yeah, it must have been.
Wow.
This, so I coordinated the summits portion of this massive project to have every branch do pages that would then be combined into a massive book. This one, the illumination is by Mistress Caitlin, whose last name I'm forgetting, but and the calligraphy is by me. And this is by far the most difficult calligraphy I've ever worked on, because it was Icelandic in style, and I don't speak Icelandic, nor did I have a nice little guide that said this is what an A, this is what a B looks like, you know, in this style. I just had pictures of actual manuscripts in a language I couldn't read. So I had to sort of extract the letters, and in some cases there wasn't the right letter, so I just had to kind of make it work in a way that fit in. And I threw in lots of these fun little doodads that probably mean specific, you know, abbreviations and so forth in the original. But so it was really challenging to get it to work and look anything like the original. So that's one I'm pretty proud of.
It's really beautiful.
The calligraphic effect. There's another one. And this is the history of, this is a poem that I think Caitlin also wrote, I could be wrong, about the history of summits, the various princes and princesses. And one more. And this is a detail of the page that I did about the Grail, the Summit's Grail, which is a symbol, the major symbol of summits other than the griffin, which is symbolic of Crater Lake. And so this is part of the text from the Summit's Coronation Ceremony. It says, "The Grail is all that we are, for it takes an artisan to craft it, a warrior to defend it, a servant to fill it, and a noble to bear it."
Wow.
And what I tried, this is pretty close replica overall of a period piece, but what I changed other than, of course, the figures being customized, was I tried to make the grail be part of the frame. The outline of a grail is the part of the framework. So at the bottom where the shield is, that's the base of the grail. The blue column is the column of the grail, and then the silver curves going up, yeah, and the blue band across the top are the rest of it. I wish I had made it a little more obvious because most people don't pick up on it, but it's there. And I loved the epiphany when I realized that the shape of the archways would do that.
Yeah, it works really well.
Yeah. And this one and another one, there's the whole thing, yeah. Coming up are what I consider to be my masterworks scribally, you know, where I can really say that was the best I could do, and when it was done, I could look at it and say, that's how I wanted it to look, you know. That's another history page. Okay, so somehow it's doing all the details first, darn it. But no, it's not you, it's Google. But okay. So this is a detail from the other one that I'm particularly fond of, and each of the medallions is about the size of a quarter. And so for this, I bought the smallest brushes I've ever had. I got down, like, a very small brush is labeled a 0 or an aught. A 2-aught, 2 zeros, is smaller. I used 15-aughts on this, which is about 3 hairs. It's like 3 hairs, you know. And I don't think I could even do this now. Just, you know, your eyes aren't as good as when you're younger and that kind of thing. But
you get out the big magnifying goggles.
Yeah, now, yeah, that would probably be the way to go. And also just hand steadiness, you know. I get arthritis in my thumb and it's just not as steady. So there's another part of it.
So beautiful.
And that's the whole thing. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's based on another pretty closely following the period example, except for the content, the symbolic content.
Wow. All right. Let's see if we can. Now I would like to pull up the history ones.
Okay.
Where are those?
I think that's just the general ones that are shown.
Well, let's go ahead and look at these general ones.
Yeah. Yeah, just memories. Yeah. So I'm wearing that woven tabard that I was talking about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I kept it open at part of the front, and then from below, you know, the crotch down was open. So it's sort of a writing coat.
Very cool.
Thing. And then this is just one of my favorite pictures ever. And there's Octomasades.
Little baby.
And Marion's playing with one of those cup and ball toys, you know. And so this was waiting at a great event called Amergans, was a big bardic competition that we used to hold, and waiting for the judges to decide, you know. We'd inevitably end up with shenanigans trying to stay entertaining.
Do we know who this young person is?
Yeah, she was Marion's page. She's not in the SCA anymore, as far as I know, but I mentored her a fair bit in calligraphy and art.
Very cool. So cute.
And this is another thing I do, is I make herbal salve, which is popularly referred to as fighter goo. I've been making it since I was a teenager. A little bit before I joined the SCA, I went to an herbal conference at Brighton Bush Hot Springs and learned to do this. And I've been making it ever since. And now basically, even if I wanted to stop making it, my friends would kill me. So, and I sell it, but not aggressively, because it's a labor of love kind of a thing. And so to make this method of making an herbal salve, it's basically like making tea, but with oil. I use olive oil, and you cook the herbs at a low heat until they've given up all their goodness into the liquid, and then you strain it out. So yeah, herbalism is another thing. I've done some research into history of herbalism and taught some classes on that. I'm not an internal medicine practitioner. I'm not comfortable with that, so I just stick with the external topical. And this is my 80s vintage label, which I've been informed by many people I'm not allowed to change. So a little while ago I was going, you know, I really should update this label so it's not so pixelated. And people said, no, that's how we find it. It's what it looks like. can't change. Okay.
We had a jar of this. It didn't last very long, but
Yeah.
Honey's loves it.
Yeah, I also make another one. Well, actually, the real fighter goo, yeah, is the deep tissue salve that I make, which has essential oils, so it's very warming and good for bruises and
That's the one.
brains. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. I think this was
Vesta's Laureling.
It might actually have been oh God, I know her mundane name, I'm blanking. Sharon Rose. Anyway, it was her wedding, I think.
Oh yes. Okay.
Julia? She's gonna kill me. Totally blanking on
Facebook has ruined all of us for SCA.
Yeah, I know, Facebook totally. Yeah, it used to be I didn't know anybody's mundane name. Yeah.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Yeah, I love that picture too. This was sometimes my household has a little private event up on the Mackenzie River, and this is a beautiful site that we would go to. And I just always feel more nomadic when I'm camping, more real. And just the outdoors is really important to me. So I feel like this is me grooving in my happy place.
And another happy place.
Yeah, this is our living room at Eggles. We had this big tent just for everybody to hang out in, and I'd actually had an incredibly shitty day. It's kind of funny, but that picture just says contentment to me.
Yeah. Like mellowing it out. And then there's the dress on you.
Oh yeah, and the headdress. I got a lot of mileage out of this headdress. Yeah. Which is actually an Akka tribe headdress from which is a hill tribe that lives in Vietnam and Laos. And it's another one of those things where obviously it doesn't look exactly like a Scythian headdress, but it has a lot of the same elements, the temple pendants and the beads under the chin and just the general shiny metalness of it. And I'm very fond of it. And I once made a Baroness completely lose her power of speech because she's a jeweler. And when she saw it, she just kind of went head tilt.
Wow. Because it's super cool.
This was fun. This was just outside our house, so one time it snowed, so we got into our woolly garb and went outside.
Nice.
This is my Laureling Ceremony with the Summit's Grail, which I used with permission as a libation. And that's the red and black coat in its fuller version. And it was raining.
Like Bill William Bjornson here?
Yeah. Yep. And
is that Raphael?
Raphael, yep. And Catherine of Heinz Cross.
Wow.
So so I was offered the laurel at a 12th night, and then I took a vigil, which was not that common at that point. But I was really glad I did, because I needed to think some things through first and make sure that I was ready, and then I was laureled at Eggles in the rain, which is just very appropriate.
And you were laureled by Barrack and Lau?
Right. Yeah. Then there's another photo that'll show that. Yeah. And I specifically wanted to be dubbed with a sword. That was important to me. And that was also not especially common for a non-chivalry person at that point.
Very cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's Ludviga too.
Oh yeah. Ludviga.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm getting lost in trying to recognize some, and we already looked at that. Wow.
That was a Summits event. I forget which one. I might have been June investiture. Yeah. That's not me in the picture. That's one of my apprentices, Yutsun. But this is a picture from the Festival of St. Hildegard site event, and it just captures to me how evocative the setting was. And so there she is going out with the sheep. And speaking of spinning being primal, I mean, one of my favorite memories, SCA related memories, is of walking with the goat herd on this site and spinning my spindle and
Wow.
feeling 9,000 years old, you know, and it was just awesome. You really, it's, you know, animals were so omnipresent in the past, and it's something that it's hard for us to recreate, you know, the degree to which people were involved with animals.
Yeah.
Especially herding people, you know.
We make jokes about taking the chickens camping, which is not the right animal, but so we have two comments or questions from the audience. Marion thinks that you were the first Laurel vigil in Ontier.
No, Lau was.
Lau was. Okay.
Yeah.
And then Lau says, is Yetzin still around?
Not in the SCA. She's doing fine. She lives in Portland, actually, but she kind of gave most of her SCA stuff to me, actually. So, which is sad. I miss her. It was, as an SCA fellow, we had a lot of fun. This event was a great one where you'd just wake up and go by the weather, you know, just like people actually did back then, because you decide, well, it's too windy for felting, so let's do something else today. Let's do dyeing, you know, or yeah, today's a good day to felt. It's magical, and I would love to have another 10-day event if, you know, of course now it's who can get time off for that, but
right.
But
what's Yetzin's real name?
Sonnet Yonker.
Oh, okay. So Optimus and
oh, right.
they game.
Yeah, right.
Like every Monday night they game.
That's
together.
right. So there's still a connection. Yeah.
Yeah. With Miklos. God, I
forgot. Yeah, like, and she did a Tibetan persona, which was great. Yeah.
Yeah, she's really cool.
This is, yeah. Can you skip and see if I can get to the first one of these? Yeah, okay. That's the first one. So this is a little teaching tool I came up with recently. Somebody asked me to do a little workshop on documentation, which I try to, you know, demystify that for people. I've done a ton of contest judging, you know, especially in the summits when there weren't that many peers at all of any kind. People would just be like, you're a Laurel, here, judge this thing. And it'd be like, pottery, I don't know anything about pottery. Oh, well, you know, so I've seen a lot of documentation or lack of documentation, and I have a lot of thoughts about how people can do it and in more successful ways, and trying to demystify it and make it less threatening. And so I was trying to come up with a really simple visual way to make people understand what a primary or secondary or tertiary source is. So slide one is the thing is the primary source, the object, the text, or the image that was made in the time. So then the next one is secondary sources, talking about the thing. And then the third one is talking about the talking. And this really seemed to work for people. And I was actually pleased, because a friend of mine said he showed it to his like 10-year-old son and just kind of did a quick little discussion of this, and, you know, why some sources are better than others. And the kid got it, you know, so I felt like, all right, that's what I was aiming for.
It passed the 10-year-old test.
Yeah, because people are confused. They're confused about this stuff, and they don't understand the difference. So.
And to be honest, I've always thought of primary resources as like the archaeologist that dug up the thing and is talking about it could be a primary source, but that's not correct. So
well, that's tricky. Yeah, but it's still interpretation. So yeah,
right.
I mean, it's pretty direct. But yeah, this cracks me up. I have no idea who made this. I don't even know who took the photo, because it just, somebody found it online, and so that's me and Marion and Miklos, and on a 12th night, and it just cracks me up. So that's our meme.
And this is your wonderful household.
Yeah, bits of it. I mean, it's pretty far-flung at this point. I don't think it would be hardly possible to get everybody in one place, but there's a bunch of us, plus assorted friends and kooky people. And, you know, our household is, we're unruly. we're rebels. We don't take to authority, you know. I mean, the funny thing is we're also monarchists, you know, but you know, we don't have a head of household, although a lot of people tend to think Ambros is the head of the household, but we're just who we are. And I feel really lucky to have ended up with that household, kind of, not by, well, kind of by chance, just meeting people. And, they really encouraged contributing to the group, not just, partying, but also contributing and research and being independent. You have this group of people who can help you, but you have to do stuff. You have to make your own progress in a lot of ways. And that was, very much a value that I think was imparted. And yeah, we have fun being silly. Yeah, this is one of my prized SCA possessions. So this is from Barrick, Robin's Fury, who sadly isn't with us anymore. And so at the same Eagles that I was Laurel, I was on retinue for Barrick and Lau, and I was sitting and I think filling in names on scrolls and right next to where they were sitting. And every time Barrick would walk by, I guess he said, "Why do you keep cringing when I come near you?" And I'm like, he was this big, intimidating guy, and he could be really brusque and blustery. And I sort of was half joking. And I said, "I'm afraid you're going to hit me." So he rips off a piece of Lau's notebook paper and he writes, "I will never, ever, 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 no matter what, hit Raven." And he signs it and he gives it to me. And I said, "I'm hanging on to this."
I have evidence. You promised.
Yeah.
He was also one of the most compassionate and kind men.
Oh, yeah.
I've ever met.
And he could be a real jerk, but that's the thing. He was such an interesting, contradictory person. He was all those things. He was, a jerk and wonderful and amazing. And yeah.
True.
Yeah, this is the baby picture.
Awkward family photos.
I know. Yeah, I don't know. I think somebody won, maybe it was me, won a free portrait studio session. So we decided to do a little differently, So this is 1988.
Oh, that's so good.
Ambrose was just starting to grow his hair out at that point. It was short when we met him. And that's Shawnage on the left and Marion on the right, and me, who, we were the triad of the high school girls who became wards of the Carriages. And that's probably like my third Scythian outfit, and the first one that really had any embellishment on it, which is a motif from the Pizarric coat, the leather on leather applique. But at the time I just had a line drawing and I had no idea what the scale was. So this is vastly larger than it actually turns out to be, but
scale.
Who knew, And I learned the hard way not to make a veil out of wool. Give me, I think the hat was probably like cardboard with fabric over it, and then this veil would give me the most amazing tension headaches. So I graduated to lighter weight veils after that.
That's really cool. Okay.
All right.
So let's see. No.
Cooking.
Want to go to cooking?
Sure.
Okay.
So I don't consider myself a cooking Laurel per se, but I have done a fair bit of it, of feast cooking and also tourney, feeding the household, which Marion and I have been feeding, the Adiantum bunch of the household, and for quite a number of years, I think since maybe like a year into the SCA. And this is a harvest feast that Marion and Maura were cooking, and I like to kibitz even when I'm not doing the actual being in charge part. And a lot of this was stuff that they had canned, like the pears in wine sauce had all been canned from food that people gleaned in the barony. And let's see.
Oh, sorry.
Right. Kind of what I consider my masterwork food-wise, which was a group project, me and Marion and Isolta Brocelion and Isabel Mackenzie did a Silk Road Midwinter's Feast So the concept was to start in China and move west. So we had a Chinese remove, a Middle Eastern remove, an Italian remove, and then an English one. And this is, you know, when we do feasts, typically we do all the bread and from scratch, you know, and make pies. So this is the bread has gilded eggs. So this was which is done in Greek Easter breads. So that was what that is. So if you go on, this is the Middle Eastern remove. I forget everything it had in it, but the orange stuff is apricot paste shapes cut out with cookie cutters and then put on a gold foil background to make a mosaic effect.
Wow.
I'm sure Marion remembers all the dishes. And we had we had different hats for the servers for each remove, and we had different painted hangings that Isolde did for each remove. And so we tried to really create an environment.
Cool.
And this is the Italian one, which is chicken Romania, which is this fantastic dish with pomegranate sauce and olives, and the bread with the gilded egg. And the bread is in the shape of a grail. So I think Marion formed the bread over metal bowls, and so you can bake a bread bowl that way and then flip it over and filled with dried fruit representing amber, and then a cheese tart.
And you guys like strung the dried fruit to look like.
Yeah, you just string it like you're making a popcorn chain, you know, for a Christmas tree.
That's kind of amazing.
And this is, so the Chinese remove was the one I kind of headed up, and based on a work called Soup for the Khan, which is I think about 14th century Chinese manual. It's really interesting. Unfortunately, it's one of those where the book costs $500, but someday I'll own a copy. And so this was the Garnish Plate, and you can't really tell, but the garnishes were arranged kind of in the shape of a phoenix.
Okay.
There's like a yellow beak, and the vegetables are dyed with turmeric and things like that. Yeah, that's the beak, and the orange carrot for the eye, and that's the tail. Yeah.
Very cool.
And then this is the rest of it. So there was Chinese noodles, and which was one of those things where the period recipe was really close to just a kind of standard modern Chinese recipe. So that works. And then we had tea eggs, which are those kind of sinister looking brown eggs.
Are those 1,000-year-old eggs?
No, different. What you do is you take boiled eggs and you roll them in the shell so that the shell crackles but doesn't come off. And then you cook them for a couple hours in a liquid with a whole bunch of strong black tea and anise. And this is something I think I learned from Plutviga. She did years ago. And they turn out this weird black marbling that kind of looks like dragon eggs.
They're really cool.
And it's tasty too. So. And this is, there's Miklos, Marion behind him, Maura behind them, and then me cleaning up stuff at another Midwinters. This is the one, the only July Coronation Feast.
Oh, wow.
I don't know what we were thinking. Marion and I did this one with Morwen, Countess Morwen. And so it was all outdoors. We cooked, it was July, it was blazing hot, and we were cooking all these chickens over this huge pit fire. In between, we were spending all of our breaks with our feet in a big bucket of cold water and eating pickles, you know, because we were just dying. Oh, wow. And I don't remember a great deal about it, frankly, but it went okay, but it was kind of like, there's a reason nobody has ever done this, and it probably won't happen again.
Wow.
This was the menu for the first feast that we did. When we were both too young to drink the wine we were serving, back when you could serve wine at a feast. Wow. So we were both still teenagers, and it's a fairly simple looking menu now, but you know, I'm pretty proud of it still. We made the cheese, you know, from another technique from Hildegard where you grind the cheese in a meat grinder and it breaks the grain so that you can then mix garlic or whatever spices you want into it and then pack it into a springform pan, and you can alternate like cheddar and jack bases, and you end up with what looks like $40, stripy cheese. You age it for a few weeks and it's phenomenal. So
Wow.
that was one of it. We had smoked salmon and a whole bunch of bread that Marion made just loaf after loaf of bread. Yeah, it was a process. It was really a learning experience, but this is a recipe I'm kind of famous for ginger cookies, which I was thinking we could post later.
Okay.
I don't mind sharing it, but I've kind of had people like, this is another thing where if I don't make them on a periodic basis, people kind of hunt me down and start shaking me by the lapels. They're very, very gingery.
If this pandemic keeps going, you're gonna have to mail some of these out to me.
We have actually done that. We did that in for Eggles, because Eggles didn't happen this year. We sent cookie care packages, which was really fun. So this is just a typical tourney lunch for us, and we just kind of cover the table with food, and then when food disappears, we put more food on the table, and it's just kind of this constant rotating field of Eggles cookies. We do, like on hot days, we do a lot of Middle Eastern food. This is just the tourney kitchen setup at Eggles. And oh yeah, subtleties. I love doing subtleties. I've done a bunch of these over the years, where you take a shortbread base. So you just roll your shortbread dough into a pan, and then you bake it, and then you cover it with jam. So this is apricot jelly and apple butter, and that's Marion's little paw print symbol.
Wow.
And there's several of these. Right. This is a caribou made out of cream cheese on a cookie base with powdered sugar, and the antlers are apricot paste, which is really useful for a lot of things like that. The infamous bear, and a double-headed bear is not an easy thing to do in cookie, let me just tell you that. So for this, I have a flat cookie base, and then I make a rope or snake out of the cookie dough and outline the shapes, and then then the leaves I do a thumbprint cookie so I can put jam in those too.
Nice.
And there's another one with mint jelly in the leaves.
Very cool. All right.
This is something that they did at my very first Midwinters, and it always stuck with me.
So somebody said that in the Scribble file is the history file. So
there's a legends file.
Okay.
Legends of Ontario. Yeah, let's look at that.
Thank you. I think it was Vesta for pointing that out. I got lost.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know where it is, but it's really
made it complicated. Yeah, so this was a project that was conceived by Marion and Isolde in their crazed aspect of having autocrated a number of 12th nights. And they wanted to do the legends of Ontier, the people who have just kind of gone into demigod status. And some of these are memorials, unfortunately, but lots of them aren't. So I did the line work as small ink designs in kind of the style of a medieval stained glass window, including the kind of random leading patterns that they did. And then Isolde enlarged them and created kind of a whole art form of coloring them in with alcohol inks from Copic markers to create this incredible stained glass effect. This is Steiger has his surfboard, which is a reference to something that had one of his reigns when he was carried in on a surfboard to court. And so this is what they end up looking like, and they're basically close to life size. And
you can see right here that these are over windows.
Yeah.
And as an attendee at these events, it is spectacular to see this hotel transformed by, this is just a small sample of how many they've done.
Yeah, Isolde really took this project to its greatest possible extreme, and it's, you know, it's a thing of beauty and wonder, because she did tons more of windows of, you know, all the branch heraldry and everything. This is Yulia with her window, which was so cute. She was hopping up and down.
I have a window.
Yay. Janeltis. You got. She's hard to draw, boy. I had to get the eyebrow right.
Yep, you got
You know,
the eyebrow.
that eyebrow can flatten mountains. So here's Grendel with his. The licking the knife thing is a reference to, has been on the Forged in Fire TV show several times now, actually. But the first one he was on, he was licking a lot of things. He tasted the glue and he licked the knife. You know, I think a lot of it was just kind of to freak out the other people, because it works too. They're just like, what is this troll man mountain thing? So I had to include that.
That's great. And they're like window clings.
Yeah, they're done on acetate, you know, sheets of plastic and edged with tape. And Result's got a whole method for storing them. And then we use an unbelievable amount of clear tape to put them up. And Dublin, sigh.
Dig it in.
But yeah, it's a fun way to pay homage to some very impressive folks.
Okay.
All right, I think that's everything.
Pretty cool. So is that it? Did we do all the pictures?
That's it for pictures, yeah.
Okay, we'll stop sharing now.
Probably enough.
I'm a little teary, sorry.
Aw.
That whole project is just so magnificent. And,
yeah. Yeah.
There's a whole window that has the arms of the different baronies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she did a basically tree of life effect. The hotel that we've been able to use has this beautiful sitting room kind of lounge area in the center that is just perfect for our purposes. It's got this huge brick hearth and like metal chandeliers and then this, so opposite that sitting area is this gigantic bank of windows, just a whole wall, 2-story wall of windows. So it's all turned that into a tree of life that shows all the branches in Antir.
It's pretty spectacular.
Gobs and gobs, yeah.
Marianne keeps saying coloring book.
Coloring book. Oh yeah, I made a coloring book based on the legends and some of the other designs. Like we should probably do a reprint one, actually, because I have to add the newer people, come to think of it. So yeah.
And do you sell that for a fundraiser or anything? Or?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, it was like for Audiantum Gold Key. I think we sold it. But yeah, should probably do an updated reprint.
I would like to purchase one of those if those come up again, please.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's another sad person that we lost recently was Alice Megan Catwin, and she was our tireless Gold Key maven. You know, she just has done Gold Key for as long as just about any of us can remember, and it's, you know, it's hard to imagine the barony really operating without her. She also did all the dishwashing for just about every feast we ever did, all of it, every single last fork or spoon, you know, and just tirelessly. And I mean, she insisted, you couldn't stop her. And the reason she came to mind is that she was the gold keeper, and she was selling the coloring books for us. Yeah.
Well, I guess she needs a panel.
Yeah, that's a nice idea, actually.
Yeah. We've lost a lot of people this year.
Yeah.
It's probably not over. So that's.
Well, we're also just aging out, you know. It's kind of spooky when people who are not much older than me are among those. So yeah.
It is. Weird.
Right, that got dark. Okay.
So on a lighter note. So you've been in the SCA since you were 13, and you're almost 50.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm outing you. I'm 50, I'm
Okay.
52, so I'm older.
Yeah.
You're still young to me. How do you keep interested? What keeps you going? Or is it just that's your lifestyle at this point?
Well, I'll be honest. I mean, I went through a big burnout period, and I really haven't been particularly involved for a while, and which bothers me, frankly. But there you go. A lot of it was that I was working in retail for so long, like for I don't know, 18 or 20 years, and um, every damn retail place wants you to work on weekends. There's just no getting around it, and so I really just wasn't able to go to much for a long time. And it's funny. I finally got another job about in 2019, and then I ended up doing a bunch of theater costuming work, which is something I do periodically, and didn't have any time. And then right about the time I was thinking, God, I could actually go to events again, the freaking pandemic happened. So yeah, I mean, the SCA is just it's just such a part of life that even when I'm not actively doing stuff or holding office or whatever, it's just there. Marion Ambrose and I have shared a house for like 25 years or so, and our entire house is just chock full of relics, of various times and events and history of summits. And but really what keeps me going is just what people are doing. um, you know I think every generation SCA wise says how they are humbled by what comes after you, because when I look at my scribe stuff, and I'm like, boy, when I started this, nobody was doing period pigments. We just didn't have the sources and the information. I mean, a few people were starting to do it maybe, but it wasn't like a part of mainstream scroll making like it is now. And now you couldn't get a scribal laurel without doing pigments and parchment and the whole 9 yards, which is just amazing to me. And it's not really, it's on my bucket list to work with that more. But for a long time it was just cost. It's the same reason I haven't done a huge number of gilding projects, is it's just expensive. Gold leaf is not cheap. And but anyway, yeah, so I'm just constantly amazed at how people keep pushing the envelope. I mean, just like you see in sports, where 1 year a triple Lutz in ice skating isn't possible, and then everybody's doing it, and then it's a quadruple Lutz. And it's the same thing with fighting. It's the same thing with the arts.
It's exciting.
Yeah, and camping events are really just more exciting to me than indoor events. I talked about that before, but just the connection to the outdoors, and it's visceral. There's just something about sitting around a fire wearing wool clothing with candlelight. It just transports me. And I don't really, especially now that more and more of our indoor events have to be in hotels and things like that, it's just not the same to me. Even though, I mean, you can do, like as well in Marion, do amazing things with hotel ambience, but there's just something about, especially I think with the nomadic persona, it just makes sense to be outside.
Yeah, for sure. So has this year of kind of being at home kind of fed your desire to camp and to do more SCA?
Yeah, I'd really like to be able to explore going back to more regular events instead of just Eggles and just Midwinters. And I'd like to. I'm impressed. I'm amazed at what people are managing to do in this situation with the online stuff, but it just doesn't work for me. As far as, I mean, this is great, but as far as experiencing the SCA, it's too removed and not physical enough, I guess. And even though, I mean, yeah, it's great what people are doing. Workshops are great. I was really impressed with the Athenaeum, but yeah, it isn't enough to scratch that itch for me.
Right. It's like this tenuous thread that just kind of keeps you loosely connected.
Yeah.
And maybe will carry us through to being able to be person and
there.
Physical and touch things and
yeah.
pull and hug and all that stuff.
Yeah, all that.
Marion says, don't let her fool you. She thinks she is an active, but at times like 12th night being an Aniantum, she does things like make dinner so I can spend the night carving foam coolers.
Yeah, Marion has this project where she gets these foam coolers from her previous job and paints them and to look like stone and then builds Roman altars out of them. It's pretty awesome. Yeah, I mean, we're kind of, the three of us are kind of a melded brain meld, and they were, Ambrose and Marion have been Baron and Baroness of Adianum for a long time. They've been Prince and Princess, I think, is it twice? 3 times? Anyway, several times, and I was cupbearer for them, and I've pretty much always been on retinue type stuff for them and doing scrolls, and it just that, I guess that kind of helps me feel more connected even when I'm not at events, is that there's still other ways to contribute behind the
I
scenes.
know that Marion has talked about the rhythm of your household being sort of disrupted because the things that you do to prepare for egg whites, and then the things that come from that preparation.
Right.
Like, there's a whole, like your whole household just follows this SCA rhythm of canning,
Right.
food prep, and
Canning for Eggles, canning for usually a midwinters or Baronies were doing a harvest feast sometimes in the fall, which is great because you can really take advantage of all the free produce. And and I make Sab in the summer, and so it's sort of its own life way.
I just think that's really cool.
Yeah, it's something I kind of take for granted, so it's kind of fun to think of that way.
Well, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to hit on tonight?
I should probably mention the Norse, of course, my Dr. Seuss Eggles poem, which is my experience of something I did that went viral before going viral was a term that I had ever heard anyway. So there was a contest one time to write, well, somebody, I forget exactly how it started, but somebody wrote a C. Dick run, C. Jane, C. Spot run version of the Eggles story or something like that. C. Eggle run, C. Eggle killed, that kind of thing. And so then there was a contest to do the story of Eggle in the style of Dr. Seuss. And I thought, well, that sounds like fun. So I made a little entry and I entered the contest and I won the contest. And then I thought, well, that went over pretty well. And I emailed it to about 8 or 9 friends who emailed it to 8 or 9 friends who, and the thing just proliferated. And I got an email from South Africa. Did you know there's an SCA branch in South Africa? I did not. They sent me their newsletter where they used the poem. Least, I would say at least 2 medievalist college professors have used it in class handouts. And one of these days I'll get around to illustrating a children's book version of it and selling that.
That would be amazing.
So that's my 15 minutes of fame, in the most utterly unexpected way. And then my friend Gwen added a bonus verse because, I mean, the thing is, I've never actually read Eggle's Saga. I just kind of read some articles and went from there. And Eggle is a fascinating character from the historical record, but I didn't know some of the details. And so Alain de Montgrí's son, who of course growing up with a medievalist mother, knew all about Eggle, and he said, well, that's pretty good, but why did you leave out the part where Eggle eats some bad food and pukes on the king?
That's really important.
I said, damn, if I had only known. So Gwen contributed the bonus puke verse, which goes, then Eggle did an awful thing. He lost his lunch right on the king. The thing he did was very bad and made King Harold very mad. Would it have been all right to puke if he had done it on a duke? And that gives you some idea of what the whole thing is like.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So we said that we would post on the sisters page the photo of your 4 laurel points.
Right.
And if you send me the ginger cookie recipe, I will post that as well.
All right.
I think. Do you want to post the Eagles poem as well?
I could. It's like 4 pages long, so I don't know. Can you do it as a file or?
I don't know. I have to look at the page settings.
Yeah, we'll figure something out.
Files or not.
Yeah.
I will look into that. I have a list of things to do now. Okay. Well, thank you for doing this tonight.
My pleasure.
I know you probably know this already, but and I kind of said it already, but you have always been very inspirational to me, and for many reasons. You know, the way that you guys do the SCA and just sort of, it's just sort of a part of your lifestyle, and it's really cool, and I admire you very much, and thank you for doing this with me tonight. I don't want to get too awkward.
Well, it's been delightful, yeah, and I'm honored that to be to be part of the project. So,
yay! All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching tonight. Tomorrow, Duchess Lau is going to sit down with us. Both my sister and I, we're really excited about that. She's somebody else who was an early mentor for me, and I'm very thankful that she's going to sit down with us too. So that'll be fun. Good night, and we'll see you tomorrow. And Raven, thank you again. Good night.